All right, guys. Hi, everyone. Anyone watching? This is Rise Above. I am here with my co-host, Brendan Fields. How are you, Brendan?
Good. How are you, McLean?
Okay. And we're actually missing Dan, who is our other co-host. His internet's down. So this is our guest host, Francois. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us what we're going to be talking about today?
Yeah. So I am Francois, as you elegantly said my name correctly. There's a lot that they look at me. They're like, "You're Francisco." No, I know I could be seen as no, I'm Francois. I promise. I got it right when I spelled it out. Um, so I'm the director of business development here at Noviland, and what Noviland does is a full end-to-end supply chain management solution, all the way from getting Amazon sellers quotes for their items through coordinating samples for them, handling production oversight, um, handling quality control inspections, logistics to the final destination, and all of this could be done in one platform. Now I know before this we were diving a little bit deeper into it, and we could definitely touch on those cool features, but we were first to market with our platform, and we're very excited to make this process that I'm sure you guys have experience with being so risky and mitigate a lot of those risks and streamline and make it simpler for any business. It doesn't necessarily have to be a 7 or 8 figure seller. It could be someone that's just starting out and has $10,000 that they want to invest into product. They can come to our platform and start developing the product with us.
And how did you tell us a little bit before we get into your actual business model and stuff? How did you get into this industry and how long have you been in it?
Yeah, so we got into sourcing about 5 years ago. Some background on it is our founders come from China, and their families actually own a series of manufacturers in the building material space. So when we first started out, it was more of just trying to find out our fit in the market and finding out that we could work with construction companies because we have factories for them, whether it's for cabinetry or countertops or whatever the case may be there. Um, and at that same time, our CEO and founder, Chuan, comes with a background of engineering at Google. I believe he was a senior engineer at Google. Um,
So
and
he's
so
not that smart.
yeah, so he's not that smart. Yeah. So he wanted to incorporate technology more into it and do so in a way that just makes this international supply chain easier because they have the experience of working with their families on the China side and the US side, having to visit customers and them having to vet the factories and the factories also having to vet them. So really providing a two-way service with this technology. So we built a platform that was released in 2018, and it really helped streamline a lot of those processes, whether it's centralizing all communications, where traditionally you might have to go through email and WeChat and WhatsApp, and then you have to go back and something might go wrong with, let's say, the specifications, and you're pointing fingers back and forth, right? You might just say, "Hey, you said that you would do this," and the supplier says, "Well, I didn't put that in the contract, so it's not going to happen." We removed that by just having centralized messaging directly in the platform, and all messaging is done with a Noviland employee, not directly with factories. And they're fluent in English and Chinese, whether that's Mandarin or Cantonese, and that depends on where we're finding the factories in our network. But that's just one thing that we're able to remove. And so when we launched back in 2018, we thought we could do this primarily for building materials and construction companies and wholesalers that might need to buy this product. But we released it to the public, and it was just out there. Anyone that saw it can use it. And we saw this rise in Amazon sellers, and we were like, "What the hell is going on? Why do Amazon sellers want to use us?" Right? Because we were thinking more so enterprise level, more of that medium to large size instead of the small to medium size. Um, and that's really where we saw this huge need in not just established brick and mortar businesses or established e-commerce businesses, but Amazon sellers of every level. So those that are just starting out and that want to invest, let's say, $10,000 into product development and product manufacturing, and likewise with quality control and logistics, or those that are established sellers, they just want to expand as rapidly as possible, and they don't have time to go out to Alibaba and vet 20 factories and order 10 samples and consolidate all of them with a sourcing agent, and then getting shipping quotes and coordinating packaging. We said we can make this a lot easier because we have the process that's already established for the enterprise level, and you can incorporate that same process for the small to medium-sized business. And so I guess it was kind of luck where we stumbled upon Amazon. And it's something that we grew to absolutely love. So the community and the engagement that everyone has is like none other. When it comes to enterprise, everyone wants to keep their information sort of secret and consider it a trade secret. And then you go into Clever Cats Consulting, which I believe is one of Dan's maybe current or former companies. And you see this entire community of just saying, hey, this is a QC inspector I use. You might want to use them. How do you run PPC, which is, I'm sure, something that you can talk more about, McLean. How can you launch a product successfully, which I'm sure Brendan has a lot of experience in with Rebate. So it was such an engaging community. We just wanted to continue expanding on it. And so ultimately, we built out a ton of features that is very specific to e-commerce, and it benefits a lot of Amazon sellers in general. Again, both those that are just starting out through the more established ones.
Are you limited to Amazon sellers specifically? Like, is that your main focus, or it's just open to anyone that needs?
It's open to anyone, but when you're looking at the pie, I mean, Amazon takes up a huge chunk of the pie. Of course, a lot of our customers also work on Shopify, or they're expanding into Walmart Marketplace, or they just own a few retail chains and they just want to source whatever product that they think could work well on the shelves. So it's not necessarily limited to Amazon sellers. We just have a lot of experience in there, whether it's Amazon FBA prep and taking care of that at the source rather than in a US-based 3PL, whether that is just making sure that it's FBA compliant, under 50-pound boxes, making sure packaging can be small and not considered medium, making sure that it's protected. There was far too many times where I saw someone ordering, let's say, coffee mugs, and they wanted to sell it on Amazon. They just said, hey, we'll put it in a little cardboard box and put a card insert. But you have to think about that next step, right? So how is that going to work? For a brick and mortar, that's okay because you put it on the shelves yourself and there's not much handling. It comes in the container, maybe on a pallet, it's safe. With Amazon, it's going through the fulfillment centers, the shipping carriers are just tossing them on the doors. And so you need a higher level of protection. So it's our job to really make sure that we know who we're working with and we can provide the right solutions. Again, when it comes to packaging, we might suggest in that case, hey, I think you really want to consider styrofoam or expanded polystyrene, and you might want to keep the mug in a bubble wrap bag. Or you don't necessarily have to start out with a full color print on your first packaging because you're just testing the market. Why don't you save 40 cents on packaging per unit and just slap on a sticker with your logo and the F and SKU label? Just test the market that way. So we're able to provide these insights and provide this partnership that I think so many, not only Amazon sellers, but businesses really need in the supply chain.
Oh no, please go ahead.
For sellers that have, existing vendors overseas, which I think probably all but the, newest companies already do you have any, program where they can outsource all these tasks to you? Because the more you describe it, the more value that's apparently offered by your company. So for listeners who already have vendors, can you step in and manage their sourcing and logistics and supply chain for them? Or are you mostly making those new introductions and then managing those relationships from the ground up?
So for now, I'm not saying that we would never do that in the future, but for now, it is from the ground up. So it is for any company that is looking to expand. Let's say they sell, different technologies or accessories, and they want to source some iPad or what are these even called? AirPods. God. AirPod cases. And they wanted a whole line of those, and then they wanted to expand into phone cases and 10 years ago, maybe MP3 cases. They would be able to do all of that through us. And we would be able to vet the right factories for them, make sure that they could take on the right projects. They have the right machinery, the right upstream supply chain. and continue to manage, the production oversight, the shipping and logistics, the fulfillment through our 3PL warehouses. So right now, it's only from the ground up, but I do completely hear you, and we realize that there is a huge need in just managing those relationships as a whole too.
Yeah. And then on the fulfillment side, so like, I think that's an area of huge growth right now. There have been so many problems, especially earlier this year with FBA. And so a lot of sellers are more seriously looking at what was more common in years past, which was merchant fulfillment or third-party fulfillment that is not Amazon. So maybe you want to talk a little bit about that, because I know that's something a lot of sellers are looking to, especially with like storage limits and even as just a backup, right? So like if there was ever an issue again where Amazon did suddenly impose restrictions on quantity of inventory stored at their fulfillment centers, or something else that disrupted sellers' ability to fulfill orders, at least, speaking for myself, that is kind of a contingency that I wasn't prepared for. I was able to pivot and, manage through the pandemic. But I think it's something that's probably on a lot of sellers' minds. And I know before the call, you mentioned that that's a service you guys offer as well.
Yeah, 3PL has definitely been on the rise, and we've seen it just by the sheer numbers of inquiries that we get. So there's two parts to that. One thing I didn't hear from that was expansion, and I think that is the most critical aspect actually to fulfillment. Because ultimately, if you stay on Amazon, you're relying purely on Amazon. If they impose restrictions, then you're going to be restricted. Whereas if you have your own Shopify store, you can continue fulfilling. Or if you expand onto Walmart Marketplace, now you're selling on two marketplaces. You need a 3PL fulfillment center for that too. So it's more of a partnership that you need to develop with the right 3PL. And ultimately, what a 3PL can do is, for anyone that might not know, is help you coordinate FBA prep. Typically, if you find the right one, they can help you coordinate FBA forwarding. So essentially, let's say they receive a full container load and they forward off half of that container to Amazon FBA. If you run out of stock, or if you wanted to expand onto other marketplaces, they can help fulfill those orders also. They typically have partnerships with shipping carriers like FedEx and UPS, where they can get labels for far cheaper. I'm talking 70+% more than what any other business can get, at least an established one can. And they in turn can, of course, offer that to their customers. And in the instances, for example, if you have a poor IPI and you need to issue a quick removal order in order to, stay within that 6-week period at the end of a quarter, then you can issue that removal order directly to your 3PL. They could receive it, they could hold on to it. It's going to be cheaper than Amazon FBA typically. And again, you can use that for more expansion. Now, aside from that, they can also accept returns, which, if you don't want Amazon to take your returns and then put them back on the shelves, and then we've seen this a few times, a seller will be hit with an item, sold as new, used but sold as new, I think is the exact term that Amazon uses.
Yeah,
and and I'm sure it's something that you both have heard about or maybe experienced yourselves. We've heard it many times from a lot of our customers, actually. And they require an invoice so they could prove to Amazon, hey, this is a brand new product. They could send in their QC reports also, just showing, hey, these are exactly my products that are not used. But let's say it's a water bottle. Someone returns it and they're like, oh yeah, I never used it. I just didn't like the color. Amazon restocks it. Someone gets it. They're like, what the hell is this? It has coffee stains inside and it's not what I wanted. It's used. So they're not lying about it. Right. But in those instances, it would make more sense to ship it back to a 3PL for them to inspect instead of having Amazon do that and then risk getting that negative feedback. So there's a lot that 3PLs could do. And we saw a huge rise, particularly in 2020, when Amazon started imposing those restrictions and when they bumped up that IPI score from 400 to 500, which is absolutely insane. Yeah. Now they're trying to take that back, go back down to 450, but thinking about it, it still went up over the course of a year, went up from 400 to 450, essentially. So using a 3PL can help with all these different scenarios, and they can help you with bundling and repackaging and again, forwarding off to those FBA fulfillment centers, and running out of FBA stock can impact your listing. So you want to switch that over to FBM immediately. Brendan, do you have experience with that at all?
Somewhat, yeah. So I've used a number of third-party fulfillment companies, and so I think another thing, at least I'll speak for me, and I know some sellers like me that are on the East Coast of the U.S. that import from Asia and from India. It wasn't so much my inability to fulfill orders myself. So I had a warehouse, I had a number of warehouse staff. But at one point I realized, it was costing me so much more, both in, actual ocean container costs, and also in just lag time. I had so much more inventory in the pipeline shipping to the East Coast of the United States, when really it made more sense to import into California or the West Coast. So for me, that was the biggest value of using a 3PL, was the geographic advantage. So yeah, that was my experience with it.
Well, flipping that now, I'm not sure if you heard about the ports in Long Beach. Thousands of containers just stuck, can't move. Items that are coming in, the vessels are being told to wait. And, on the China side, they're also being told to wait. Of course, there's container shortages also. That's something we could dive into, because that has to do with the supply chain. But now a lot of our customers, instead of shipping to our LA warehouse, where it might take 3 or 4 weeks to get through customs, they're shipping it to Savannah, and it only takes about a week and a half extra. Now it costs a little bit more, yes, but the speed to market is the most important part, at least the most important part that we see for successful Amazon sellers. They always want to always have inventory, always be expanding. So yeah, that works in both ways, and having the right partners is really how you can achieve that. Otherwise, you're scrambling, trying to find the right 3PL, and then making sure that they have a good partnership with FedEx or with UPS, make sure that they can get the products out too. That it's just such an important aspect. I think 2020 really shed a lot of light on that.
Definitely, yeah, and I think it's unique, particularly to e-commerce sellers, is like, I have a lot of people ask me, they say, oh, well, do you have a lot of back orders? Because I was complaining to somebody, I said, well, my product went out of stock, and that I can't get it for a month, and I was doing X, number of dollars in sales in this product. And somebody who's not experienced in e-commerce said, well, you just take back orders, right? And you can, fulfill them when you get it. And I explained, you don't, in e-commerce specifically, generally don't get back orders because it's so competitive. Why would anybody buy my product, wait a month? And actually, as a matter of fact, on Amazon, you can't even, to my understanding, take back orders. If you don't have a product to fulfill, you can't even accept the order. So yeah, I mean, especially with e-commerce and with most products that there is an alternative, there's somebody else selling that product, having inventory in stock ready to ship right away is the lifeblood of a successful e-commerce business, for sure.
Yeah, and you go ahead.
Oh, I was just wondering, how has, from your standpoint, how has COVID affected your business, or has it? It
has increased our business dramatically.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about, where sellers once thought, my supply chain is the most solid supply chain, and there's no other supply chain like it, and they can never fail. And, we might have had a conversation with them 1.5 years, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, maybe even. And we saw them all flood back into the platform. We saw them increase their shipping requests, of course, because logistics is just such a mess right now. We saw them increase the products that they wanted to expand to, because they wanted to expand their e-commerce business, because everything shifted to e-commerce. So it's actually, there was a light at the end of the tunnel for us. And we saw that particularly with e-commerce, and we believe that e-commerce is going to be the future, whether that's B2C continuously, and we're seeing a huge rise in B2B. B2B e-commerce, I think, is the next big thing. What's you guys' take on that?
Brendan, you go.
Yeah, I hadn't put much thought into it, but yeah, I mean, I'm sure it makes a tremendous amount of sense. Like, so I have my business is sporting goods. And it used to be, when I started my business, I was selling everything to consumers. And I see all the time now on Amazon, it'll say, I'll get a big order, I'll get a multi-$1,000 order. and the, ship to will be a school or be a summer camp. And the
Right.
reason is these institutions, they now have a credit card that they can use to buy stuff online, where in the past they had to print a purchase order, they would fax it to, some company that took purchase orders via fax. And yeah, no, I think for sure it's, B2B sales online is definitely going to increase. Yeah.
Yeah. And I also think that bigger companies that usually do B2B are now doing B2C, like Coca-Cola, like specifically Target or Nike or whatever. They're not so much selling through like stores and stuff. They're just going directly to the customer, which
Yeah.
is, not something that they really used to do until recently.
Yeah, it's funny, Brendan, that you mentioned schools actually, because so we moved a lot of PPE all through 2020, and we're continuing to do it for our partners and our customers now. And I think the biggest orders that we tend to get at our facilities for any PPE, whether it's masks or sanitizer, comes from those schools. And it's going to be a continuous thing where they're going to continue trying to order it. But if the Amazon seller doesn't realize that and isn't able to make those bundles, let's say instead of having just one box, having a 10 pack of boxes, and maybe having a pallet, and maybe having a truckload, and having all these different offerings, they can expand onto Amazon Business, which is doing tremendously well.
Mhm.
Hospitals are using it, governments are using it. So you're able to reach such a new audience, and you have to do that by having the right partners. Again, 3PLs, you have to do your research on who you're partnering with for a 3PL. Are they able to fulfill those orders? How much stock are they going to be able to actually manage a month? Can they grow with you? What happens if something goes wrong? And let's say Amazon doesn't actually take, or they don't log that they took 50 cartons, but the 3PL knows they shipped 50 cartons. How can they prove that? So, it's someone that you can partner with and that you can rely on. I think that it is the most important part within the supply chain.
For sure. And just adding to that too, I think, and maybe this was something we're going to touch upon, but the technological ability of the 3PL. So like, and it depends on the products you sell, but integration with platforms and integration with inventory management systems. And those are the sort of things that I found are critical to scale, because you can like grow so quickly, doing everything on Excel and, manually inputting information. But having those integrations and that ability to scale through leveraging technology, which I think a lot of the best 3PLs have that. In fact, some of them I speak to, they'll start, bring up terms I've never heard, like these systems that are enterprise grade systems that I'm not familiar with, but are systems you would become familiar with as you scale and as you grow. So I don't know, maybe you want to talk about that, specifically related to your company.
Yeah, no, I think technology, in every facet, technology is going to be the future. And with 3PL specifically, we are starting to see a rise in different, APIs that you can incorporate. So whether that's using Shopify direct to your 3PL or using Walmart. And the issue is that there isn't necessarily one that catches all of them. Right. So you might have one that integrates with Shopify and Amazon well, but they don't integrate with Walmart, or vice versa. Or they don't integrate with BigCommerce or WooCommerce if you're doing more of those B2B sales. So it's finding one that is familiar with how you're planning to distribute your items. And I think in certain cases that makes more sense if you're doing Shopify and doing those individual sales, than finding one that has the right technology partners for that. But if you're doing more B2B and it's a much larger scale, they might not need that technology.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it just makes more sense to manage on Excel.
Right. Yeah. So you mentioned before the call, you have a network of 3PLs that you guys work with, I guess some that you own and others you contract with. What does that network look like?
Yeah. So excitingly enough, we went from having 28,000 square feet about a year and a half ago to over 500,000 square feet that we utilize currently. That's in LA, that's in Atlanta, or the Atlanta area, Connecticut, and New Jersey. And so very strategic that it's not necessarily in the middle of the country. That's where you find the cheaper 3PLs, definitely, but you have to worry about shipping it to those 3PLs. And sometimes they don't have the best logistics or highway systems around them. So it would make more sense to stay closer to the water and stay closer to the ports. That way your cost to get to the 3PL to begin with is as low as possible.
Mhm.
And so with that, yeah, we do contract out, let's say, a larger space from, or a smaller space from a larger warehouse facility or distribution facility, and we have our own docks there, but we own the processes behind it. So we won't contract out the work necessarily, just the space, because everyone manages risks differently, I guess is a kind way to say it. Some of them you will see just completely ignore anything that their customers are saying, and they say, hey, yes, I shipped it. You ask them, hey, well, where's the proof? Like, oh, no, I shipped it last week or 2 weeks ago. No, it's fine. It's fine. Others, they'll manage it. Hey, I scanned this in. I make sure that it has all the proper labels. It was shipped out on this exact date, and this is the UPS carrier that we used to actually ship it out, or this is the truck that we put it on to make sure it gets to a FedEx facility. So everyone manages the risks differently, and we take great pride in what we do, and that is always a customer-centric approach. Whatever's in the best interest of the customer, we will do. There isn't an expense that we're willing to spare to make sure that that happens.
Yeah, nice.
And at what point do you, like, say I'm brand new to selling on Amazon? We'll just stick with Amazon since that's a huge focus group for you. And I wanted to use your services. At what point in the line of stuff I have to do would I reach out to you and say, hey, I need your help?
So, and we could just walk through it quickly. An Amazon seller, first, they obviously have to learn how to sell on Amazon. They understand some of the requirements behind it, create an Amazon seller account, and they might look at different products that they want to start sourcing or that they might want to sell. So let's say they sign up to Jungle Scout, they do a quick product research, or they're part of a mastermind and they help guide them to find different products. And at that stage, it's still very conceptual. It's still very, I just think, the AirPod cases would be a good product to sell. Now they need to do a little bit more research. What colors, what designs, what sizes, how am I going to package it? Is it a small or is it an oversized item? So they have to take all these different factors into consideration, plus also doing some more background research. Based on my competitors, I'm seeing these 1-star reviews. So this is something I have to improve on for this item. It's not so much just taking an item and replicating it, which is just white labeling. It's more so the private label aspect. And we OEM contract out our factories to make those products. So once they establish their RFQ or their request for quote, it would have all the product specifications. It would have all the material specifications, the packaging information that they may want. So again, is it coming in a box? Is it coming in a poly bag? Do I want a full color print? Do I just want a label on it? What is their budget? What is their target pricing? And then they would come to us and say, hey, look, this is my project details. Do you have a factory for me? And they would submit it in our platform. And from there, we hop on a call with them. We learn more about their business, make sure that we're a right fit for them. We don't handle drop shipping, for example. So if someone's trying to source from a factory overseas and just ship one item at a time through their Shopify store, we don't support that. And we just have to tell them very upfront, it's not something we could do. If they need something that is fully customized, and I've seen some amazing ideas that unfortunately I can't share due to the privacy policies, like absolutely killer ideas. But if you don't have the capital behind it, it's never going to come to life. Right. So I just have to have a tough conversation with them about, hey, just based on these specifications and based on the tooling that I've seen for similar products in the past, it's going to be at least a $50,000 investment in just tooling and molding, not for production or not for shipping, any of that. So it's our job to inform them. And that's our job as a partner. Right. And I think that's the most important aspect. And Brendan, you might have some experience with this, or McLean, you as well. If you're on Alibaba, you won't always find the best partners. You will find a supplier. And what that means is it's very transactional. They will see you as a dollar sign. It's, yes, I can do that. They'll keep dragging you along until at the very end, and then they might increase the price, or they might just say, oh, turns out we can't actually do it. Now you wasted 4 weeks. If we can't do something because our factories can't do it, we'll be very upfront with you. We'll let you know it's not doable because of XYZ reason, or we just don't have a factory for you. Now, if we can, we put in the work, and we don't charge anything for this work. We put in all the work to try to get you the right pricing the first time. So again, going back to the marketplace model, where you might see incremental increases, see the clickbait pricing 20 cents, MOQ 200. Turns out the price for that is actually a full container load, and they're BSing you the whole time. We will tell you, hey, this is 40 cents. MOQ is 2,000 units. Now, if you get to 4,000 or 10,000 units, it's at 35 cents based on this packaging. And if you wanted to bundle it, it's this pricing. And then they can add that product to a cart. They could see the delivered pricing. They could see the import duty, see if it just makes sense to them. I think one thing that we're trying to solve, and that the industry and supply chain really lacks, is that level of transparency and that honesty with upfront suppliers. A lot of times it's them just trying to lure you in and start reeling them in, and then they just jerk them a little bit at the end. That's something we're trying to remove from the process. And I don't know if you guys have ever, it's stuck in my mind ever since I saw it. There's a commercial for car shopping, and it goes, oh, I'm removing all the drama or all the BS from going and buying a car and all the negotiations. And that's basically what we're trying to do. I don't know if you guys ever saw that ad. No.
It's like it's like Carvana or something. It's like the online.
I think that's what it is. Yeah. Remove all the headache from actually doing it.
Yeah, it's a good idea. It's a very good idea.
Yeah, so that's sort of the direction we're going in, and we hope to be able to bring that to every level of seller. Again, whether that's someone that's just starting out or an enterprise or Fortune 500.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, how do people I can't really relate it specifically to my business, but I understand what you're saying in terms of turning down people just because they don't have the margins to be able to afford you, or you think their product isn't going to make it. How do those conversations go? And do you find that your potential customers get angry about that, or they're thankful that you're so honest about that? Like, how's that?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. You find those that are very ecstatic about the honesty because they just encountered so many lies throughout the process that it's refreshing. And others that it's harder for them to take in because they don't understand. They don't have the experience behind manufacturing or shipping or logistics or certifications. So to them, it might seem like, just a quick example for the pop sockets, please don't sue me. But if you had something that was directly attached to a phone case, and you might say, oh, I just want to combine these two products. Simple enough, just go ahead and do it. And we tell them, hey, something like that is actually a lot more complex. A factory has to invest in the molding to merge them together. They have to make sure they have the right materials in place. One of them might be PVA, the other part is silicone to be more of a grip. So they have to incorporate those into it. And they might see the pricing and be shocked by it. They might say, I don't want to invest $20,000 in molding and tooling. That should be easy. It should be something simple. And why is the price $10? It should be $2 because these two items cost $1 each. Well, it's a lot more complex, unfortunately. And having those conversations is never going to be easy. But it's important to actually have them. And if you keep it honest every time and consistently, we're firm believers that, word will get out of our honesty, first of all, about it. But that we can encounter these cases and we can create more education behind it. So we can tell someone why something's not possible. Why can't you order 200 units for the same price that Nike's ordering? Well, it's because they're ordering thousands of containers a year for that same exact SKU. So it's all about education, and that's what we're trying to push. Particularly this year, we were definitely trying last year, but coming on and speaking to some amazing people like you guys, hopefully we can get the word out more about supply chain, because it's not talked about enough.
Yeah. So who handles insurance? Is that something you guys do? Because I know that's a topic a lot of people are interested in. Since you guys are kind of taking this from, as we said before, the ground level, do you guys manage the insurance, or do you guys bring in a third party to manage the insurance? And what is that like? What responsibility do you guys take versus in your case, I guess, your client, is that what you call them, client or customer?
Yeah. So I mean, we have different terms. They all mean the same thing: client, customer, partner. Ultimately, we're relying on them to make money ourselves, and they're relying on us to supply them with the products to make money. So
Right.
it's all sort of synonymous. But in regards to the insurance, we do take insurance, and that's in our terms of use. We are also their supplier. So let's say they get DDP pricing. We are responsible for that item all the way until it gets to the final destination. Anything goes wrong, the vessel sinks, it doesn't get delivered to Amazon, or they only claim that there's 47 out of the 50 boxes. And I use that example because that's a real case that happened this past month. And it's just, as your partner, we need to hound UPS and we need to hound Amazon. Now, sometimes that's just not enough. Sometimes you have to just sit back and say, okay, hopefully Amazon in the next month, when they start to clean their stuff up, they will find those 3 boxes. Yeah. Okay. When they can get their shit together, then they will find your 3 boxes. I promise, because we shipped them, and this is how we shipped them. This is the process that we took to ship them, and this is how we logged it. And this is UPS confirming that they picked up all 50 boxes. But it's just staying on them and then finding out, okay, how can we provide a solution to this? Do you need 3 cases to be express airship from the manufacturer? Is that even possible? Do you need, just additional units on your next order? How much sooner do you need to place that next order because you're short 3 cases? So it's all about finding solutions. And so when it comes to insurance, it's all about how do you handle that insurance and who are you going to handle it with? That's our job to take care of.
Got it.
I'm curious, how big is your team?
Small team. Well, small, it's a global team, actually. So here in the office, we have about 10 people in the US, actually, as a whole. But on the China side, we have upwards of 20 or 30 employees. And that's located in our Hangzhou office and our Shenzhen office. And so that goes all the way from product specialist. And I guess to also give you a quick breakdown of the team, there's a US-based account manager. There is, and that one's dedicated to a specific account. There's product specialists, which are dedicated to the projects. So let's say someone is sourcing the AirPod holder, and that same company also wants to do, just looking around, cabinetry, I don't know. And so those are completely different items. But if they want to source it, they want to source it. So the product specialist that's doing the phone holders probably isn't doing the cabinetry. So you might have 2 different product specialists working for you, but it's still on the same team. You have order managers that oversee the logistics and oversees that the projects actually have the right CRDs, and the CRDs being the cargo ready dates. So making sure that containers get there on time, that they're consolidated properly. They'll also make sure that the boxes are actually Amazon compliant, that they're the weights that they say they are, that they have the appropriate labels, things like that. And then the quality control inspectors, which very intuitively, they handle the quality control inspections. And they provide the reports to our users for every single order. So it's an entire team that works with you, and it's project to project. So, for one project, you might not be working with the same product specialist, but you'll always have the same account manager.
Awesome.
And then
it's different.
I'm just trying to process it.
Yeah.
As far as maybe one of the last legs of it is payment terms, right? So I know we've talked to a lot of people, McLean, who in different areas of Amazon, and it seems to be a recurring subject that comes up is the challenge of financing inventory, because it's just this crappy situation, because if you're growing quickly, you have no money because you're buying more and more and more inventory. And even if you're not growing that fast, you have something like COVID happened again, where all of a sudden what used to take 2 or 3 months to get now takes 6 months or indefinite amount of time. So I guess the question is, what do you guys do as far as payment terms? And maybe you guys do this, but if I maybe give some unsolicited advice, if I was your company, I would be laser focused on trying to figure out, like, working with a banking partner or somebody to offer credit to at least established sellers. I understand it's extremely risky, somebody who's just starting with an idea and no track record. But to me, that seems like an obvious thing to do, because it is a big challenge for small businesses. And I would source from a factory that had a little higher price, but more favorable payment terms just for that reason. So yeah, so what do you guys do with payment terms?
Yeah, so two pieces to that. And I think the second is more important than the first. The first is that we start off all of our sellers with, or buyers, customers, partners, however you want to call them, with 30% upfront and 70% prior to delivery. That's after we provided them with a QC report, fairly international standard. As they grow, we can definitely revisit those payment terms because we can renegotiate with the factories. Now, the second part to this, and you touched on a little bit, but is how risky, I guess, the process is. And everyone believes that they can start out with the most favorable payment terms. Far too many times I've had a brand new Amazon seller come to me and say, hey, I want $20,000 worth of product on a letter of credit. And this particularly happened for PPE, all of 2020. I just saw an increase in just requests for letters of credit. The issue with that is, for starters, to factories, you're a nobody, right? They have, if you don't order the products, they're going to have a dozen other people lined up to try to order something from them. So they don't necessarily need your money. They don't necessarily need to give you those favorable payment terms. Payment terms are something that you can only really get favorable ones, only one of two ways. One, you're a huge business, enterprise, Fortune 500, Fortune 100. The banks can lend you certain amounts in order to lock in better payment terms with your suppliers. That's number one. And they'll also lock in currency exchange rates if you're a big enough company. That's how companies are able to keep their costs low. Now, the second, I'm sorry, I just completely blanked.
I thought you froze. I thought it was going to be me and McLean.
No. I completely blanked.
Yeah.
Second being relationships. So as you grow with your factory, as long as you are not over-promising and under-delivering, as long as you are being a proper partner to them, and that means not, pointing fingers whenever a problem comes up, instead finding a solution collaboratively. As long as you are doing all these things with your suppliers, they will start to offer you better payment terms as you grow. And that's something that's natural with just business in general. So I would suggest any seller that, first of all, they should know that they're not going to start out with the best payment terms, and they should be okay with that. Their ultimate goal should be to build a close enough relationship with their supplier to where they could get those more favorable payment terms. So maybe that means forecasting out a little bit more. So as they grow, hey, XYZ factory, we're just starting out with 500 units now, but if we got to 10,000 units, can I get one of two things? Can I get a price reduction? Because the production costs, are probably going to go down. The more units that you're manufacturing, can I get that? Or can I get better payment terms? So this is affecting my cash flow, but I think when I get to 10,000 units, I'll be able to do 10,000 units a month, and proving that to them. And once you have this history, they will be able to see, okay, this is promising. We could float them, this certain cash because they are continuously coming back to us. And you have to do that through relationship building. There's no other way unless, there's absolutely no other way. You have to do it through relationship building.
Yeah. 30/70 is a good starting point. I mean, there's a lot of vendors I work with that want to do 50/50, and then you have to push to get 30/70 after working with them for 2 years. So yeah, I mean, anybody who's coming to you who thinks 30/70 as the opening, payment terms isn't good, I could just tell them that that is a good, good payment terms for.
I'll send them your way. But
I'll tell them.
the ultimate thing, I just need to find the videos that they reference, and I need to flag those videos for misinformation. Is what the fake news videos out there saying, "Hey, I'll make you $1 million in 2 months, and you could start out with these payment terms." I'll call that fake news.
So we actually are about to wrap up. It's been about 45 minutes, and my child that's locked in his cage is trying to climb out. So. But out of curiosity, just for one last question, Francois, what would be your number one tip or advice for anyone that is going through, I mean, any services? I know you offer a lot of services, but what would be your number one thing that you would recommend to people that are starting out in we'll say the Amazon community?
Yeah, and that's something that I believe Megla actually asked me a few months back, and it sort of stumped me. But in thinking about it a lot more, it is 100% preparation, and whether that's preparation with capital, so not just having $2,000 for your entire Amazon business, but maybe having $2,000 to fund your first production order, having an extra $1,000 for logistics, having extra $200 for QC, and so planning all of these financials out. And preparation with your RFQ. This is something that I cannot emphasize enough. I've seen far too many, and they come to us and we help them prepare them better because we want to set them up for success. But if you're going on, let's say Alibaba or 1688, DHgate, wherever you submit an RFQ, if you submit an RFQ and just say, I want AirPod cases and I want blue AirPod cases, they're going to be like, oh, what the hell are you talking about? Do you want metal ones? Do you want silicone ones? What style of AirPod cases? Do you want a design on them? What sort of packaging? If you don't come to them with a fully built out RFQ, it is impossible for them to take you seriously. And that is no way to start a relationship, first of all. And it just shows that you are not willing to put in the effort to actually make your own product. You want someone to make it for you. And so when a factory sees this, they immediately think, hey, this guy's unprofessional. I'm either going to outprice them, so they're going to charge you way too much in hopes of you going away, or I'm going to give them a price on a product that I think that they want. And usually it's not a product that you think that you want. So you're going to waste a bunch of time. So preparation is hands down the most important aspect to any Amazon business, particularly when it comes to sourcing.
And one of the questions I see all the time on Facebook, I'm sure both of you have seen it, but it's the question of, do you think you can start a business with 5K? And I'm interested to know both of your opinion on that. I know it was possible like years ago, but nowadays, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's a very broad question. If you ask me if I can start a business with 5,000 or an e-commerce business with 5,000, 100%. If I had nothing to do, I'd go out to Walmart, I'd retail arbitrage, I would resell, I would maybe make my own products, sell them on Etsy, whatever the case may be there. Oops, sorry. Computer spazzed out. So can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Are you
okay.
Oh, okay. That was Dan. Now it's you. Like, this is a scary movie.
So I guess with $5,000, yes, you could start a business, just not an Amazon FBA private label business. That's what I would say. You would at least need $5,000 for just product if you wanted to start a successful FBA business. And that's working with cheap products, like lower cost, small units, lightweight, doesn't cost much for shipping. That's my 2 cents on it. I think you at least need 10 to 15,000 minimum in order to start an FBA business. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I think you can, but you have to be scrappy and clever as hell. Like, there's definitely small products and there's niches on Amazon. I've said this in past podcasts. There are products that people are looking for on Amazon that are not on Amazon yet. There's not a lot of them, but very specialty items. And I mean, if it was me, I would try to find a domestic supplier that had low minimum order quantities and do product research like crazy, finding something, maybe not with high demand, but at least, low to moderate demand that was not on Amazon, that I could get locally, that I can make a good profit on, flip quickly, and just grow like that, But yeah, I mean, if somebody's thinking they're going to import a container of stuff, for $5,000, that's probably not even going to pay for the container now, right? So,
I know, but
Yeah, I mean, container costs are insane.
yeah. All right. Well, that's awesome. I really appreciate you, or we both appreciate you being on. Why don't you plug yourself one more time, let everyone know how they can find you, how they can find your company, if you have social media, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Okay, I'm spazzing out too much coffee. This is my third cup this morning. Sorry about that. Noviland.com. If you wanted to just get started with sourcing, QC, logistics, 3PL, or the entire thing on one platform, completely free to sign up, no credit card or anything required. Just noviland.com. And just hit the sign up button in the top right. You could plug or follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Noviland Inc., INC at the end. You can find us on Instagram at Noviland Inc., or maybe it's at Noviland Inc. And you can shoot us DMs there. I mean, we answer questions all the time. It's almost like a free consultant. Don't take advantage too much of it, but definitely ask your questions because supply chain is so tricky to maneuver. And so all we're about is education and making sure that you don't find those fake videos and you don't see the fake news that's misinforming you. We'll tell you like it is.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. We'll put all of your information when we make this video go live. We'll post all of your information so anyone watching can get a hold of you. Thanks again for being on. Brendan with Rebate, thank you. And we'll see you guys next week, hopefully.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me.